I sent out the notice to students and colleagues. The responses were coming back in. Oh, I didn't know Professor Nyang passed away, or I'm sad to hear the sad news. And I said, no, no, no. Nothing of the sort happened. He's alive and well, and I'm still running after him, trying to catch all of you. So it is really a pleasure for us to be able to do this for a dear colleague, for an icon, for an exemplar, whilst, as a friend of mine has said, while she can still smell the roses. So I think it's really important that we do this to our own, recognize, embrace them, celebrate them, make them see and feel the kind of appreciation and love that we have for them whilst they're still around with us. With that, I would like to move on to the other parts of the program here. Next, I would like to welcome on the podium a fellow Gambian, an economist by training, but also an accomplished writer, cultural figure, and a Renaissance man, period. And that is Dr. Tijan Sala, who's coming to us from the World Bank to do a poetic honor, a tribute to Dr. Nyang. Tijan?
Thank you very much, Mbai. I'm indeed very pleased to be here. In 1989, I wrote an article on the life and works of Professor Suleiman Nyang. It was a piece modeled on a piece he had written on Professor Ali Mazrui. Nyang had written a monograph called Ali Mazrui, The Man and His Works. I was at that time teaching at North Carolina A&T University in the Department of Economics, and just freshly finished my PhD and started teaching. And in that work, I sent it to Nyang. He was pleased with it. I sent it to Professor Mazrui. I don't know whether he remembers it. But I called, that many call Nyang the younger Mazrui. And Professor Mazrui reacted, and he said, maybe Mazrui is the older Nyang. I think one of the remarkable things about Nyang is he has the gift of the gab, both in terms of ideas and in terms of how he interacts with people. And Mazrui has been known also in his writings to have never written what they call a dull paragraph. I think it's important for Nyang to know, I came to know Nyang in 1982. That time I was about to finish my bachelor's degree. And they used to organize here in Washington at Johns Hopkins a program called Model OAU, the Organization of African Unity, done by Michael Nwanze. And Nyang used to be invited to speak. We met. Being a Gambian, I was quite impressed by this Gambian intellectual, and he became a sort of mentor to me. So during my undergraduate years, later on when I went to graduate school studying economics, he would write to me letters, send me encouraging letters, copy articles he has written, send them to me, send me photocopies of proverbs, of local Wolof proverbs and so on. And I used some of these in my own writings and so on. And began to continue to admire this man because of his selflessness. You know, the Wolof in Senegal and Gambia have a saying which goes like this. They say that nit nitay garabam. That is, a person is the medicine of another person. And I think what is impressive about Nyang is that he has lived his life selflessly. He has lived his life selflessly. And he has done this almost to his own poverty. He has lived almost a life of deprivation. Any money he has, he gives to organization, helps young African students. mentoring them and so on. And this is incredibly remarkable because many of us are very selfish. And many of us, we are trying about accumulating and looking big and trying to impress others of what we've accomplished. But Nyang is always concerned about others and what can he do to help others. And this to me is a remarkable thing. You know, among the Wolof, they have a saying which says that Ludud Yalla Nenla, whatever is not God must be ordinary. Whatever is not God must be ordinary. People may be very smart, they may be very wealthy, they may have a lot of power, but after all, they're just human beings. And I think this is a lesson that Nyang has always had. He always carries himself with humility. And that has to me been very amazing. Nyang grew up in the Gambia, first starting in a rural area in Basse, you know, where he went to school, first primary school. Then he moved to Banjul, which was the capital of the Gambia. In those days, it was called Bathurst, and went to a school called Mohammedan School. From there, he went to St. Augustine's High School, which was, in those days, there were 5 high schools in the Gambia, and St. Augustine's was one of the elite schools under the British system in the Gambia. He went to St. Augustine and finished at St. Augustine's and came to the US in 1965, around the time when Gambia as a country became newly independent. In 1965, Gambia got its independence. That's when he came to the States and went to Hampton Institute, which now is Hampton University. And there he studied under a professor by the name of Edward Coleman. He studied philosophy, learned the writings of the Greeks, you know, and the medieval thinkers and the Enlightenment. From Hampton University, Hampton Institute, he went to University of Virginia, where he studied public administration. From the school founded under the tradition of Booker T, he went to the school founded on the tradition of Thomas Jefferson. From University of Virginia, where he did his PhD, he came to Howard University. And he has been totally committed to Howard all his professional life. He has had opportunities to go to teach at some of the most world-renowned universities with big bucks offered to him. No, he has been consistently devoted to training and developing young minds, black minds at Howard University. Howard being the seat of black intellectual power, the Black Ivory Tower. He spent all his life at Howard. And this, to me, is a remarkable thing. There have been many famous black professors who started at Howard, ended up at Harvard, Stanford, and all this. Nyang remained devoted to Howard University. And this, to me, Nyang is an extraordinary human being who insists on remaining ordinary and inspiring others. Now, I'm not supposed to speak too long. I know so much about Nyang, I could spend the whole evening telling you about him. So I'm just going to read a poem, which is what I'm asked to do. And the poem I've written is titled, There Was a Man from the Gambia. There was a man from the Gambia. He went to St. Augustine's High School, Hampton University, and Virginia. He studied under Irish Catholic priests who taught him the Bible and Latin, mathematics, science, literature, and other riddles. There was a man from Lehman Street. He has known Half Die and Buckle Street. These are streets in the Gambia. Half Die, which is an area of Banjul where half of the people died because of a cholera epidemic a long time ago. So it's called now Half Die area. So he was known in Half Die and Buckle Street. He learned the Quran from famous Gambian teachers, and the teachers were Pa Tijan, Tafsir Dembandau, Pa Keba Kor, Sidi Taban, those great preachers. He was gifted in school in both Quranic and Nazarene education. He learned the Arabic alphabet and English by dictation. Translating the Quran into Wolof through the process of Wolofal, he became good at it, in a nutshell, even triumphal. Of the law of the Greeks, he learned from Professor Edward Coleman, minoring in philosophy, absorbing the medieval scholars and the Enlightenment. He moved to the University of Virginia to join the Jeffersonian tradition. From Hampton's freedpeople law, he joined the landed gentry's firmament. There was a man from the Gambia. He studied in the 60s America in Virginia. Witnessing the civil rights movement, he became a Pan-Africanist, admiring Garvey, Malcolm X, Martin King, Carmichael, those great activists. He admired Nkrumah for his bold vision and mentored young Africans to dream a continent of united mission. He was a brilliant explorer of ideas and an engaging speaker, loved to toy with ideas, turn, counter-turn, this truth seeker. There was a man from the Gambia. I will not name his name. He's not from Zambia. He has written many articles and books on Islam and African politics, taught at several universities, responded to friends and critics. Of his many virtues is his selfless humility, caring for others, already ready to serve humanity. He always has time for ordinary and important folk, gave each his respect, empowered the weak to talk. There was a man from the Gambia. I will not name his name. He's not from Zambia. He served diligently as the Gambia's deputy ambassador to Saudi Arabia. Of that stint, he learned the dribbles of politics in the Gambia. He loved Howard University, that seat of African-American intellectual power, loved to train young blind minds in this black ivory tower. Opportunities galore, he shone them always for Howard. Grooming to success young black minds, he made his life mission and reward. There was a man from the Gambia. I will now name his name, our own Professor Nyang, a distinguished speaker. I have even called him the younger Mazrui. And if Professor Ali doesn't object, I would even call him Professor Suleiman Mazrui. Known across the continent, from Egypt to Nigeria, he's a shining intellectual, this Promethean luminary from the Gambia. Delighted we are gathered here to celebrate his thought and works. I invoke the ghost of Leopold Senghor. Please join me with an applause. Play all the Gambian musical instruments in our cultural repertoire. Play the kora, the sabar, the riti, the balafon. Let us celebrate this Gambian intellectual etched in our memoir. Let us celebrate this scholar, our own Professor Nyang. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tijan. Now, we have a presentation by students of the Department of African Studies, and there's really no great honor than to receive one from your students. So.
Good evening, everyone. We don't really have anything prepared. We just wanted to give Dr. Nyang a token of our appreciation and love for him. And so this is on behalf of all the students in the department.
It's a small token of our appreciation. We're grateful for your mentorship and your guidance, and we just hope you can keep this at your desk. Since you're punctual, it would. Yes. On behalf of all the graduate students and the African Studies Department, just thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. Thank you, Lydia. Next, we have three people who I'm going to call to come and pay brief. Don't listen to. Don't read that tribute. To Suleiman. Starting first with a former colleague, Barakat Selassie. Now, you've heard of the term small junior Mazrui, but when I came here in 1980, I was mentored by Barakat Selassie to a large extent. But from a very early time, he started calling Suleiman Little Mazrui. And that was the name that really stuck. So every time we're on the phone, when he calls me, he doesn't say hello, he just say, bye. And some of you who know how Suleiman talks, it's like, you know. So that's our little joke here with Barakat. But Barakat is a professor of law and African Studies at University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Occupies a very prestigious chair there of Luttenberg, right, Frank Luttenberg chair of law and African studies. So we're very, very glad that he was able to make the journey up to come and be with us here. So, Barakat.
Thank you, Mbai, for giving me this honor to pay a tribute to my friend, former colleague and brother, Suleiman Nyang. Yes, I feel guilty for calling him Little Mazrui, but I regret the word little because that sort of may seem to be demeaning because let me explain why I called him Little Mazrui. From the very time he joined us at the African Studies department, I think he came a year after I joined the department. He had been, I think, Deputy Ambassador of the Gambia in Saudi Arabia. And from the very beginning, we hit it off. I was impressed by his mind, by his very clear mind, his expression. He's always concise, clear. But more than that, I was impressed by Suleiman's humility. He always talked about the Abrahamic religions. He always said the Abrahamic religions, meaning, of course, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, in that chronological order. I don't give this order in any other sense, except that Judaism came first, then Christianity, and then Islam. And on several occasions, we discussed the issue of the conflict between the Palestinians and the Israelis. They are actually brothers, cousins, and they adhere to two of the great religions of the world. I often cited, when we talk about politics, I often discussed with Suleiman, I wish that humanity emphasized ethics, not politics. Because how do you explain the readiness of people to give money to those in need? How do you explain communities in Africa and elsewhere to be the first responders to their desperation, to their crisis? I've seen this in Africa. And so I started thinking about the ethics of it. And I will remind you, those of you who are Christians, I'm sure you don't need reminding. I'm reminding you of the parable of the Good Samaritan. Do you remember? Yes. There was a man who had been beaten by robbers and left to die. And many people passed him by, and those who passed him by, at least on 3 occasions, were members of his own tribe. They were Jews. And then this Samaritan was passing and he saw this man, and he took pity on him. And he bound his wounds and took him to an inn and told the innkeeper, take care of him, and if you expend more, I will pay you back when I come back. A Good Samaritan. The parable of the Good Samaritan was told by you-know-who in answer to the question after he said, love thy neighbor as thyself. I think one of his disciples or somebody asked him, who is my neighbor? It was in answer to that question that Jesus Christ told us the parable of the Good Samaritan. In other words, I think the empathy that human beings are capable of, the compassion that human beings are capable of in stretching the helping hand to their fellow human beings, is ingrained in the human nature. In fact, some scientists have now come up with the theory that compassion, empathy is ingrained in human nature as a matter of survival. It's a matter of strategy. Human beings have to help themselves in order to survive. So it's not something artificial, it is fundamental to human nature. And it is in this sense that I saw Suleiman Nyang as a very humble man. His most important quality to me, apart from his brain power, is his humility. Humility, not false humility, it's genuine humility. Much has been said today. I don't think I need to waste your time by repeating what has been said before. But let me just explain again why I called him Little Mazrui. Mazrui is an institution, not just an intellectual of great weight in African studies and world studies, but he has now become an institution throughout African studies, and therefore to call somebody Little Mazrui is no mean achievement, Suleiman. So you'll forgive me for adding the adjective Little Mazrui. And I wouldn't have missed this event today. I just came from North Carolina. I drove through heavy traffic. In fact, what it usually takes 4 hours took me 7 hours because there was an accident. So I just made it, and I'm glad. Congratulations for this great, well-deserved honor, and I know you'll continue to add to it. And I hope my speech is a warm-up to my brother Ali Badrui's future speech.
Thank you, Barakat. It's a pleasure to have colleague Dr. Robert Edgar, who is the Director of Graduate Studies in the Department of African Studies, who has been here with Suleiman for quite a while. So, Dr. Edgar?
No, sure. I came to Howard in 1977 when Nyang was Nyang. And, we've both gotten a little gray around the edges since then, or as someone said to me not long ago, you're not getting grayer, you're getting blonder. Now, when I started to think about my remarks about Suleiman, I just thought about all the areas that he's been involved in. Areas like commerce, education. There's a third area I can't remember. I think I've been watching too many Republican debates. You know, some years ago when one of my colleagues was coming up for tenure, we received a letter about him in which another scholar described him as the great amphibian, meaning that he was not only good in one area, but he was talented in another area as well. But when I think about Suleiman, I think, you know, that this term amphibian really doesn't capture all the areas that he has been outstanding in. And I was trying to think of a metaphor to describe him, and you're going to find this very odd. But I thought about the iceberg as a metaphor for Suleiman Nyang. Now, of course, knowing Suleiman's personality and the warmth that he generates, he's quite the opposite of an iceberg. But what I was thinking about was the fact that with the iceberg, you have the tip of the iceberg, and then the substance of the iceberg is below the surface of the water, and you really don't see the whole iceberg at any time. And I think what has really struck us over the years, over the decades, is really all of the areas outside of what we know here at Howard that he has excelled in, that he has been committed to. You know, not only has he been a pioneer in scholarship in remarkably varied areas, not only has he been an outstanding teacher, but he's been someone who's been a counselor in international affairs with the U.S. government, but also with many institutions and governments around the world. He's been a mediator, a diplomat. And we know about his career as a diplomat, but he's performed those kinds of diplomatic actions on many different fronts. I think we here in African Studies think of the diplomacy that he had to wage when he was department head in our department to keep our department going at a very crucial time. He's also been one with a great institutional memory. He really is a griot in that respect. One of the areas where I give him a remarkable credit is the fact that he's been an ecumenical bridge builder in the area of religious faiths. I remember one occasion when he came to visit the church we attend, and Methodist church, but what he was about was creating the bridges between different faiths, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism, and he's been extremely important, a very important facilitator in the United States and probably elsewhere in that respect, and I think that's one of the major contributions in his life. So, as I look back upon my associations with him, you know, I look upon him as one of my most trusted colleagues, but more importantly, he's been a real brother. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Bob. I am going to call on a dear brother, a mentor also, and a good friend who is always very, very supportive and encouraging and always waxes lyrical. Whenever I bump into him on campus or on Georgia Avenue there, we just like, if we had been rushing to